Hi, I'm Jill with the DIY and home decor blog timeonourhands.com. Thanks for watching this video. Recently I've been working on giving my kitchen a modern makeover. I've finished refacing the cabinets with wood veneer and doors that I made myself. If you'd like to see my DIY modern kitchen cabinet makeover, I'll leave a link to the video up here in the left corner. Today I'm going to show you my favorite faux marble laminate countertop and how I installed it in my kitchen that has weird angles. Let's get started. This is what my kitchen counter looked like before. Brown, laminate, old-fashioned. I wanted to replace it with something more modern with a look of marble. I found this Stretto white marble countertop last year when I made over one of my bathrooms, and I love it. The problem was that the manufacturer doesn't have directions for installing it in a kitchen with weird mitered angles like mine. I finally got the courage to try to install this counter in my kitchen, and this is how I did it. The first thing I did to install my new kitchen countertop was to remove the old countertop. First, I unscrewed the screws inside the cabinets underneath the counter, and then I carefully scored the caulking between the wall and the old countertop with a utility knife to separate it from the wall. If you're removing a piece of countertop with a sink in it, you'll also need to shut off the water and disconnect the hot and cold water lines and the sink drain. The next thing I did was trace and cut the countertop at an angle. As I mentioned before, I'm not a carpenter, so I don't know how to figure out how to cut weird angles. This is how I did it, and it worked for me. First thing I did was dismantle my countertop where the mitered angles were joined. There were a few screw-looking things on the underside of the counter, so I loosened them, and the two pieces of the countertop that came together and the angle came apart because the glue was all dried up. Next, I had to remove the lip on the front of my old counter so that I'd be able to sit it flat on my new counter to use it as a template. I cut the lip off with my jigsaw, but later realized that it was a separate piece and I could have just pried it off. I lined the old countertop up with the back and front of the new counter to use it as a guide, and I traced the angle onto the new countertop. I used painter's tape on my new counter where I drew my line. Then, using a circular saw and Kreg AccuCut, I cut along the line I had just traced with my old countertop template. After that, I took the other piece of my old counter and used its angle as a guide to mark and make my second angled cut that will be joined with the first cut I made to make my counter fit in the weird angle of my kitchen. I lined the second piece of old counter up on top of the new counter and traced the angle from the old counter onto the new one, and used that line to cut the second angle. Before you start joining the two pieces of angled countertop together, trim the opposite ends of the countertop from where you cut your angles so that it will be ready for finishing once you're done joining the angles together. Put the countertop pieces on top of the kitchen cabinets and line them up just as you want them to be when you're done. Determine how much overhang you want. Mine hang over about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch past the end of the cabinet, but it may be different according to your preference or if you have an appliance that needs to fit in between two ends like a stove. Once I had both angles cut and had tested how they would fit on the top of the kitchen cabinets, I got ready to join the two angled pieces of countertop. First, I took the smaller piece of countertop and, using my Kreg jig, drilled pocket holes into the bottom side of the end of the counter that I would be joining to the other piece. Next, with the bottom side of the counter facing up, I applied wood glue to the end of the counter joint. Then, I lined up the two pieces I was joining very carefully. I sandwiched the joint in between two pieces of wood and clamped it all together. Once I had the counter angle that I was joining held in place, I screwed it together with Craig screws. Then I removed the clamps and had my husband help me very carefully put the countertop in place on the cabinets, being careful not to put any stress on the joint that I just joined. I cleaned off any excess glue that had dripped out of the joint with soap and water and paper towels, and I let the glue dry for at least 24 hours, and then I reused the screws I had removed from my old counter to secure it to the cabinets underneath. Finish the counter edges with the Stretta end cap kit. Starting at the back of the counter where it meets the wall, line up the Stretta end cap piece so it is covering the end of the counter and flush with the top. You can use a piece of painter's tape to hold it in place if you want. Then, holding it tight against the end, trace with a pencil the front curve of the counter. Cut the Stretta end cap piece where you marked it with scissors. Start by peeling the protective backing from the end cap piece and press it in place against the end cap of the counter, starting at the front and lining it up and pressing as you go until the whole piece is in place. If needed, very carefully trim the end cap piece with a very sharp utility knife. But you need to be really careful that you don't chip the counter when doing this. And that's it. New faux marble countertop. That's how I installed my favorite faux marble laminate countertop in my kitchen with weird corners. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, please give us a thumbs up down below. If you'd like to see more of our DIY and home decor videos, then please subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, leave those in the comments section. I guess that's all for today. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.